I took my job at Disney because it paid better than most. I wasn't chasing dreams or trying to be part of the magic. I just needed a paycheck that covered rent, and that was it. Custodial was not glamorous, but it had its perks. No screaming customers in my face like the food service folks got. No safety lectures like the ride operator sat through every morning. Just me, my broom, my dustpan, and the endless sea of people too busy making memories to notice the guys sweeping up their popcorn spills. There was a kind of anonymity in the job that I liked. Put on the white coveralls, keep your head down, and you become part of the scenery. Families did not look twice at you. Couples brushed past you. Even other cast members barely acknowledged us unless they needed something cleaned up fast. Turnover was pretty high, but it's kind of a disposable position. People would kill to work at Disney. It's also pretty easy to get fed up once the reality of the job hits you though. That was fine by me. I was not there to make friends, but being invisible had another side to it. When no one pays attention to you, you start to notice things that they don't. The way the same woman in a red jacket walked past Adventureland 3 times in an hour, looking over her shoulder. The way security showed up to a bathroom in New Orleans Square without anyone calling them, just like they already knew something had happened. The way certain doors, tucked behind fake facades and cast members only signs, had keypads instead of locks. I figured most of it was just normal park operations. Security, maintenance, logistics. But every so often, I would see something that didn't quite fit. Something that made me think twice. And once you start noticing those things, it gets harder to stop. At first, I told myself it was just my imagination. Just a job, just a theme park. But then, one night, I saw something I could not explain. And after that, I started looking closer. That's when I realized something. Disney hides a lot more than just tunnels beneath the park. I'm not quite sure what exactly it is, but I'll try and explain what I saw and what I think. The Disney tunnels. We called them utilidors. They were off limits to most guests, but they were essential to keeping the park running smoothly. The whole idea was to keep the illusion intact. You would never see a cowboy from Frontierland wandering through Tomorrowland, or a giant bag of trash being dragged down Main Street. Everything the guests weren't supposed to see happened beneath their feet, out of sight. Trash removal, costume changes, security briefings, even food prep. My keycard got me access early on. Custodial had to be everywhere, and that meant moving freely between the tunnels and the park above. Most of my shifts were spent hauling bins, scrubbing bathrooms, and doing my best to avoid the higher-ups. The managers liked things done, fast and quiet. No disruptions, no scenes. If you did your job and did not ask questions, they left you alone. I've heard stories though. Every person who worked here knew the stories. There were always rumors floating around, usually passed between custodians on break or whispered among the night crew. Tunnels that did not appear on any official map. Unmarked doors only certain people ever used. Parts of the park that were off limits for no real reason anyone could explain. At first, I chalked it up to cast member folklore. Every job had its urban legends. Some new hire gets lost in the tunnels, takes a wrong turn, and stumbles on something they weren't supposed to say. A door that leads somewhere it shouldn't. A room that's always locked, but sometimes you hear noises coming from inside. Every time, it's a friend of a friend who saw it, never a first hand. Ooh, so spooky. But the longer I worked there, the harder it was to ignore the little things. The security guys who never talked. The way maintenance workers avoided walking through certain areas if they could. They did this, even if it meant taking the long way round. The doors with no labels and no handles. Just keypads that only a few people ever used. Working this position had a way of making you a ghost. People did not look at you or think about you. I mean, unless they needed a puke puddle cleaned. That meant you could be anywhere, and no one questioned it. I stumbled upon my find by accident. I wasn't even somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. At least I didn't think so. It was a late shift, long past park closing. The tunnels were quieter at this hour. All I heard was occasional radio chatter from security, or the distant hum of machinery behind the walls. I was hauling a busted costume rack back to storage. My mind was on autopilot. I was dreaming about my nice warm bed and leftovers I was gonna reheat. But then I noticed something I did not recognize. A side corridor. Huh, weird. I stopped. I'd been working in the tunnels for a while by this point. More than long enough to know the layout. More than long enough to be sure this part was not supposed to exist. Just for reference, I was not high, and I don't drink alcohol whatsoever before you accuse me of that. No schizo either. The walls were different in this part. The paint was a slightly off shade of white. It looked like it had been repainted one too many times to hide something beneath. The light fixtures overhead weren't the usual ones, but were actually older bulbs that gave off a faint yellow glow. I don't think anywhere had used those kinds for years. The air smelled different too. I don't quite know how to describe it though. Like, unwashed ass is probably my best descriptor. Not as bad as that, but like, stale or something. There was no sign marking the hallway. No cameras in the corners either. Just a stretch of empty space leading to a metal door at the end. The door was open slightly. I just stood there, holding the costume rack like a dumbass, wondering what I should do. The logical thing to do was probably my job, but whatever. I was thinking of packing the gig in at some point anyway, so why not have a little fun? I just went for it. I mean, hey, I couldn't see any cameras, like I said. I can just tell them that I got lost and blame my noobness. Inside was what looked like a storage room. Rows and rows of metal shelves that I could just about barely see with these dim-ass bulbs. They were all stacked up, just randomly. Whoever did it did not give a fuck. Tons of old props and withered costumes. Tons of dust all over them too. The smell did not get any better in here. Worse probably. It was slightly different now though. Something like a tang of rust to the smell. Not very important, but it was off. With the dust and everything, it looked like no one had come in here for a long time. Sweet. Lots to explore. I headed in deeper. I spotted a pile of toys on the shelves of different characters. Just the usual ones. They had dust all over too, and were faded as fuck. Looked like they'd been left in the sun for weeks. Come to think of it, some of the eyes and faces were a little messed up, so these were probably toys from the factory that had defects, and they just decided to stash them out of the way. Can't let the kids see Mickey with one eye too big now, can we? I kept walking through, and spotted something tucked away into the corner of the room. Looked like an elevator. It wasn't the same as the usual utilidors you would see around the place. This one looked a lot older. The metal on the door was dulled completely. The edges had wear around them. There was just a blank panel where the floor indicator should have been. Looks like it was removed a long time ago. I definitely was not supposed to be here. I called the elevator. Inside was just one button, labeled B2. This did not make sense at all. There was obviously no B2 on the maps whatsoever. The part that I was in now was already the basement of the park. This should be the lowest level. This was common knowledge, so what the fuck is this B2 shit? What could they possibly be storing underneath here, and how could it have been here for so long without no one knowing? I guess they just tell people this is the lowest floor so that they don't go snooping. Against my better judgment, I decided I was going to see for myself what was down there. The descent down was a lot slower than I expected. I just chalked it up to the age of the thing. This was actually pretty stupid in hindsight. It's likely this thing had not had proper maintenance in a long time, so there was no guarantee it would be safe. The elevator took a while to open. I was actually worried I was stuck in there for a second, but it finally slid open, very slowly, with a hissing sound. Seemed so much colder down here, which I guess was to be expected, but it was like a wave. I expected maybe some more storage, and maybe even more defective merchandise, or abandoned machinery, like above, but there wasn't any of that. Just a lot of shelves, stacked to the top with files. The whole place was a mess, honestly. Just trashed, but the files all seemed pretty orderly. The rows and rows of files seemed to be infinite, there were so many. They all looked to be pretty efficiently organized, from the labels and the black markings on the files themselves. There was one row that all had a year marked on them. One file for every year since the park opened. The spines were dusty, but still in good condition. I had no idea how long they had been untouched. I decided to pull a random one out to take a look. I was hoping I'd learn something juicy that I could tell my coworkers or just post online. The file was heavy as fuck. I guess it made sense, given that it was one file per year. The cover was worn, and the pages were a little yellow from age. Lots of neatly typed reports. Just boring stuff, really. Security logs, incident reports, that kind of stuff. Really mundane shit like, kid fell and bruised leg, I called medic and did yada yada and told them blah blah. Then you had logs of lost property, and if any of it was claimed, and other stuff too. I started flipping through pretty quickly, as I was growing bored, but then I got to a section that had a lot of photographs. Looked like they were for missing people. Made sense given how big the park was and how kids can be, especially many years ago. A lot of parents are pretty irresponsible and will let their child do whatever they want if it means getting a minute apiece. Strange though, not a single one of the photographs had the picture of a child. Each and every one was an adult. I mean, adults do go missing too. I guess they just had to file a log every single time someone reported they were looking for someone and couldn't find them. But why go to all of the effort to take a picture of them for a log? How would you even go about doing that? Security logs? Nah, the quality was not ass enough. Most were mugshots too. I read further into the file. These weren't guests at all. They weren't photographs of missing visitors to the park. These were photos of employees. All the photos were in black and white. Each picture had a blank expression, like you would have for a passport photo, so I guess they were all taken for legal documentation and/or ID badges. All the photos had a name underneath, the section of the park they worked at, and the date. That wasn't all. Underneath every picture, also at the bottom of the page, was a stamp in red ink. It just said, "Terminated, do not discuss," with a tiny picture of a smiling Mickey next to the text. So, they weren't missing posters like I first thought. These must just be logs of fired employees. I kept flicking through the pages. I felt a weird bit of nerves now. I kept reading on, and some of them had brief descriptions on the bottom. Reasons for being fired, I guess. Most were pretty short but very odd. Removed from the records, as per the directive. Final payroll processed. No further inquiry made. Just single-line explanations usually. Some had nothing, and just the red stamp with the date. Some were really weird and used code words I did not understand. Stuff like MEP number 12, integrity compromised. One was something like MEP number 14, recovered, unresponsive. I put the file back and picked up one more recent. There was a file for this year. Considering the state of this room, it did not make sense. Sure, the files were pristine, but the rooms were certainly not. Digital logs I would understand, but why continue with the physical ones? There were only 2 for the whole year. One was blank. The other caught my eye. The name was familiar. So was the photograph. I used to fucking work with this guy. Not like closely, but we would make passing remarks and bitch about the job. Outside of our interactions, he seemed kinda quiet and kept to himself. No one ever brought him up to me. Sometimes we would even have a break at the same time, and he would tell me stories about his life. I could tell they were pretty exaggerated in an effort to impress me, but he seemed chill enough. One week he just didn't show up again, and when I asked, people told me he must have just quit. A lot had not even heard of him. Again, custodial, ghost. No one really gives a shit. The file said something odd though. It had that same stamp in red that said terminated with the smiling Mickey. It also had a short reason at the bottom. Accessing unauthorized area. Terminated immediately. That's all it said. I put everything back exactly how I found it. The elevator ride back up felt like it took even longer, and I was shooting bricks, thinking someone would catch me. When I got out, I walked fast, but tried to walk with confidence, like I was just in a hurry to be somewhere for something important. Did not even finish my shift, just went straight home. Got calls and emails from my employer, asking why I no-showed, to come back in for a meeting, to have a performance review, etc. They were really insistent, but I just ignored. Creeped me the fuck out way too much to go back. Never told anyone what I saw until now. Go to sleep, 20th of May, 1999. Wake up in a different house. Have no idea where I am. Look at the strange computer on desk. Says it's 20th of May, 2010. I'm looking at an advanced Mac. I'm bewildered. Where have 11 years of my life gone? Turns out, I have 2 dogs and live alone away from society in a closed-in forest area. House full of furniture, clothes, food, etc. 11 years of my life forgotten. Still confused today. Be me, 9 years old. Be living in Cheyenne, WY, USA. Big ass Air Force base in town. F.E. Warren, look it up. Used to military craft, can identify them easily. Warm summer night. Be looking out window, right next to bed. Sleepy thoughts. See large green circular light, slowly transitioning south/north across town. Object emits pulses of soft green light. Object pauses over 3 places. Airport, military airstrip. F.E. Warren Gate main entrance, which has replicas of America's 3 largest nuclear missiles outside it. Chemical manufacturing plant outside of town. Object adjusts altitude and heading with precision movements, but not jerkily. Bright flash of green light, and object shoots straight up. Huge rush of military aircraft rest of night. Helicopters, C-130s, but unusually, also jets. Only time jets in town is for air shows or after 9/11. Well, this happened on the backyard of the house of some friend. Be 10 years old, playing with our Beyblades. My Beyblade hit something on the ground. We go to find out what it is. It is some glass bottle. We unburied it. It has a lot of blood inside. Friend calls for his grandma to come and see. She opens the bottle. We don't even know what it is, but it has a lot of blood and also a paper. She says it's okay, I'll go put this in the trash. We forget it and keep playing. Be me at 16 years old and sneak out with friends to hang out or explore old abandoned buildings. Living in Mississippi at the time, near a town called New Albany. We decided to explore a building in the back country that was supposedly haunted because a bunch of Satanists took their own lives there. Being the Bible thumper area that it was, locals kept it out of the local papers, but word of mouth is a thing. So me and my friends, there are 5 of us, get there, and it's a slightly dilapidated 2-story house. When you go inside, it's got a long hallway with doors on either side and ending at a staircase that leads upstairs. We decide to check the upstairs first because why not? We start to go upstairs and my head starts to hurt. I think nothing of it because my abusive grandparents had me on meds that I should not have been on, so I got headaches fairly often. As we ascend the staircase, however, the headache gets worse, to the point I'm thinking of turning back, but I try to tough it out. When we get to the top of the stairs, there is a long hallway as well, with doors on either side again. We take 1 step into the hallway, and it feels like someone shoved a spike through the back of my head, and I pass out. The next part was told to me by my friends later, and I had no reason to doubt them. So, after I passed out, they hear a thud and turn to see me on the floor. I was bringing up the rear in case someone tried to sneak up on us, and I had the best hearing, and they rushed to turn me over and try to wake me up. Suddenly, my eyes shoot open, and I grab my friend, let's call him Bob, by the throat, and, according to them, lift myself and him off of the ground. Now, I had some muscle, but he weighed 260 pounds of muscle, so this should have been impossible, especially one-handed. Then I said in a voice not my own, "You need to leave now." And they start freaking out saying, "Fine, we'll leave, and I put him down and start down the stairs. As we left the stairs, they hear a door upstairs slam open, and it sounds like something massive is stomping down the hallway towards the staircase, and I say, too late, and just crumble to the ground. My friend Bob then picks me up over his shoulder in a fireman carry, and they haul ass back out to his truck, and he tosses me in the bed of the truck and takes off after everyone piles in. 2 in the cab, and me and 2 others in the bed. Shortly afterwards, I wake up, and it is pitch black. This is weird, because when we arrived it was a clear night, with a full moon, and no forecasted weather. I look at my friends, and they just stare at me, and then the road behind us. I look in the cab at the speedometer, and we are doing almost 150 miles per hour. I look towards the back of the truck, then the front, and notice that the lights aren't illuminating more than 10 feet in any direction. I then hear my other friend, let's call him Sean, say oh fuck. When I look towards the back of the truck, I just barely see something on all fours running after us just at the edge of the light of the taillights. Then all of a sudden, it is bright out again, like someone flipped a switch. I mean, the moon is back, and there is not a cloud in the sky. We see New Albany in the distance and start slowing down and head back to Bob's house. No sleep. Next is a follow-up a few months later. So, a few months later, we decide to ignore what happened that night. I wish we had gone to a priest now though, and go camping. My friend Bob had found a clearing in the woods near his house while hiking, so we load up early in the morning and hike to the spot. We set up and start hiking around. Fast forward to that night, and we have a huge campfire going. We are smoking weed and talking, when I notice that aside from us, the woods have gone dead silent. Now, if you've been to Mississippi in midsummer, you know it is never silent at night. So I start looking around, and it was like someone dumped ice in my veins, cause the campfire is barely illuminating 10 feet out, and I can barely see the tree line. I then look across the fire to my two other friends, let's call them Mark and Will, and I see eyes behind them shining. I call out their names and say, behind you. They look, shoot to their feet, and come and rush to my side of the fire, with Bob and Sean. I am literally shaking in fear when I feel something tap my arm. I look, and Bob is holding out one of his pistols to me. I am surprised to see each of my friends aiming a pistol at the thing across the fire. Found out later that they had gotten them after what happened at the house. I grab the pistol, and I take aim. My uncle taught me how to shoot at his friend's firing range, and Bob counts down from 3 to 1, and we open fire. This thing does not fucking flinch. We empty the pistols, and suddenly it growls and stands up. It had to be 13 feet tall, and it reaches behind it and starts climbing up the tree while just staring at us. Soon, as it's out of sight, the light comes back, and so does the night sounds. We did not let that fire burn out after that, and as soon as the sun was up, we hauled ass out of there. After that night, every now and then, when I'm outside at night, I will see this ducking thing on the edge of any light just staring at me. I'll know it's there because everything will suddenly go silent. Fast forward a few years later, and I'm living in Illinois. I haven't really talked to the guys for a while when I get a phone call from an unknown number. It's Bob's wife calling me. He had taken his own life, and in his note, he had asked that I and the others be informed. I was the last that she had called, and informed me that Mark and Sean had died in a car accident in the middle of the night, and Will was found in his garage, disemboweled. Bob blown his brains out. I thanked her for letting me know, and gave her my condolences. After I got off the phone with her, I looked at my apartment window, and saw that fucking thing looking at me. I closed my curtains, and did not sleep for 2 days after that. To this day, I still see it, and wonder why it hasn't killed me yet. It's been 7 years since I found out they all died within days of each other. I'm not religious, so I can't say God is protecting me, and I'm not suicidal, so I'm not going out that way. I don't know what made me want to share all this, but be careful out there, bros. Sometimes this shit gets too fucking real. This is like a collection of paranormal shit that kept happening to me. I don't have a direct cause, but one idea that comes up in my head is that I destroyed an old wooden chair directly behind my backyard fence. Anyone who knows about chair in the wood shit, tell me about it. Be me, outside chilling in my backyard. Behind house is woods that stretch out for a while. I cut down a lot of trees and brush right where the forest meets the fence, and wanted to make a path, but fuck that now. 2 fence posts were taken out of my fence so I could get in and out. Hear an animal in the woods calling out in a pattern. Like, not the same number every time, but same distance between each call. Immediately get mom and brother. Wait around, and after a while, both mom and brother acknowledge it. We just stand there listening. Mom says it's probably an animal that got hurt by the trains near our house and is in pain. Doesn't make sense why it would be calling in a pattern and not just yelling or something. Sounds almost human-like. Put the 2 fence posts we took back in and rush inside. Me and my brother go in and start researching. Think it's some kind of big cat or fox. Go through several videos, and we definitely think it's a big cat, but can't find specific one. Plus, we don't have big cats in the area. Never happens again. One of many things that happened that month. Really was mainly scared if it was just an animal, it would try and get into the yard. Another thing. Be me. Dead of night in my bed, but not asleep, but on my phone. Hear little sister, 5 at the time, call out for my mom. This is my cue to go in there and carry her out to our mom's room. She has a bunk bed with no bottom bunk, forget what they are called, and it's too dark to climb down. Go into the room and see she is asleep. Confused, lightly shake her to wake her up. Now she is confused and says, "What?" Like I'd woken her from deep sleep. Like, deep sleep. She's sleep-groaned in the past, but always when she's half asleep. Like, so deep sleep, it sounds like her vocal cords are waking up. There is no way she could have been the one yelling for our mom as loud as she did. Tell her to go back to sleep and go back to my room. This happened twice in that month. One more. Be me. Asleep in my bed, door closed. See brother's silhouette in doorway. Assume he opened it and is messing with me. Silhouette is wearing very specific robe that my brother very rarely wears. Groan at him loudly. Does not react. Groan again louder. Silhouette spins out the side of my doorframe, out of sight. Roll over and close my eyes and think about how mad I am at my brother for fucking with me, still conscious. After 5 minutes get up, open the door. Didn't register how continuity was not adding up IRL and head to the kitchen where my brother is cooking and wearing the robe I saw him in. Head over and trying to be quiet, mess with him while laughing and poking and fake punching him and shit. He's laughing too until I say, in between my punches, "This is what you get for messing with me." He laughs and says, "I did not mess with you." Confused, I say, opening my door, watching me all creepy, and now he's confused and stops laughing and is like, "What? I didn't do that at all." Argue with him about it for a while, and now I'm confused. We do these jokes a lot, but usually with jokes like this, the punchline would be to give up the bit and see the reaction that the other brother was messing with you. Tell him alright and go to bed. Wake up in the morning and argue about it. Says he did not do it. Still to this day, says he was not doing that. JK lied, not the last one. Happened like 3 days ago. I've been hearing tapping at my window, day and night, heard it just now. Was about to say like 3 minutes ago and was literally in the middle of typing and had to backspace. Anyway, probably moths, but hoping some dude knows more than me, and maybe these are related. I had this super weird dream, and I have not had any dreams in a while. I'm third-person perspective, looking at all these rich people and celebrities having a party. A girl with sunglasses is floating, taunting, and groping another girl in a group as they head to the bathroom. The girls ignore the sunglasses spirit girl. They are all applying makeup when a puddle of blood grows from no source in the middle of the bathroom. Spirit sunglass girl looks at me through the camera, gym office style, and says, "Recognize it." A bunch of rich people party shit happens, while slowly the puddle grows and spreads through to different rooms while people look into the camera and tell me to recognize it. Eventually, everyone moves into a room with no windows. Kind of looks like the back rooms. The blood is now so deep that everyone is swimming in it, and I am disembodied laughing in it. I remember laughing so hard, I half wonder if I'm laughing in the real world, but just barely don't make the connection that this is a dream. I wake up and think that the dream was fucking hilarious, and then after a minute of reflecting, I could not think of a single funny thing in the dream, and still, I see it as super creepy. Any dream peeps?